start seeing big changes. Mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo is proposing a brand new law that targets wealthy New Yorkers. He wants to prevent them from living in rent-stabilized apartments. He's calling it Zohran's law, targeting his political opponent who lives in a stabilized unit.
Here to break it down is real estate broker Jason Haber. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah, likewise. So Andrew Cuomo is proposing this law to prevent wealthy New Yorkers from living in rent-stabilized units. It's a slight on his opponent, Zohran Mamdani, and who lives in a stabilized apartment. So from a housing market perspective, how would this type of law impact the market?
So Andrew Cuomo is clearly touched a nerve here, and you can see that his opponent is rattled by it, because we should find more ways to house middle and low income New Yorkers. The question is, what are we really achieving by having high income New Yorkers give up their apartment leases and rent stabilized apartments? It's probably a very small number, to be perfectly honest with you. I understand why he raised this issue, but the truth is we're sort of nibbling at the edges instead of focusing on the core of the problem, which is supply. And everything that Assemblymember Mamdani is proposing will hurt that supply and thus hurt affordability in New York.
Maybe you should explain how that works. Why would he hurt the supply of having more apartments on the market, which in turn,
right,
when the supply is up, then the demand kind of levels out, so you would think the prices would go down.
Well, that's right. Well, his plan is to, Assemblymember Mamdani's plan is to freeze the rent, but not for everyone, freeze the rent for some, which would raise the rent for others and cut the supply for all. And that's at the center of the problem with his proposal. That's why it's going to drive up rents. It's like 8th grade economics. Once you do anything that impacts supply, you're going to have higher prices. Instead, we should be looking at ways to increase the supply, which will ease the housing crisis in the city.
Let's switch some gears here, Jason. Wallet Hub released a new study showing the best states to live in. New Jersey beat New York. Do you agree with this? What does the Garden State have that the Big Apple doesn't?
Well, they have Springsteen, we have skyscrapers. But if you break down the data and look at it, the states are basically neck and neck on every category except for one. And that category is education and public health. We have rising rates of juvenile diabetes and lower test scores. That is a recipe for disaster in the future, and that needs to be addressed in the state. Health and education. And that's something policymakers need to take a close look at. But other than that, the states are pretty even in every other category.
Well, there was other states like Idaho, which topped the list from both of us. We came in 9th place. So in terms of people leaving, where are they going? I mean, we've heard it was Florida, but has anything changed?
Well, you're seeing people, I mean, obviously Florida's had population growth, Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee. There are a bunch of states that have seen population growth. But what I worry about as we think about this election, by the way, just to tie this back together, is not rich folks leaving New York. It's actually working class people who are going to be priced out of the city. And that's who I worry about leaving, whether they go to Massachusetts or Idaho or wherever else. Those were 1, 2 on that list. So that's who I worry about going forward in this critical election that we have.
Mortgage rates are coming back down. Some good news there. The 30-year averaging about 6.6% right now. How is that going to affect New York?
Yeah, it's looking really good. I was just talking to my good friend Scott Vandermark at Citizens Bank about this. It's a really good trend. A lot of transactions in New York are all cash. In other markets, they rely heavily on financing. So as we see rates come down, we'll see more buyer activity, which is healthy for the market. And by the way, that gets back to affordability too, right? Like, we want people to be able to afford their homes, which really means affording your monthly payments. And as rates come down, more and more people will be able to afford those payments and afford to buy a home.
But Jason, the reality is that for a lot of people that are coming into their 30s, late 30s, they want to buy a home when their parents and grandparents have already owned a home at that age. This is impossible now. So I don't even know if you're going to get the rates down to the point where they need to be for people in our generation to be able to afford this.
No, that's absolutely right. This is a generation of renters. In fact, in New York right now, 2/3 of the city's population are renters and only 1/3 are owners. And as you know from every statistic, home ownership is the pathway to creating generational wealth. And a lot of people around the country, not just in New York, are locked out of that because of high prices. And it's one of the reasons why expanding supply, not just locally, but around the country, is so important right now.
All right, Jason, thank you so much. We appreciate it.